At my father's retirement barbecue, his public insult about me being a disappointment was the last straw. I took back his $10,000 gift and walked out. But the real shock for my family came the next morning when they realized the watch was the smallest thing I'd taken back. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The smell of lighter fluid and overcooked sausages hung heavy in the humid July air, a smell I usually associated with lazy, happy weekends. But not today. Today, the smell was suffocating. I gripped the small, heavy, dark green box in my hand, the lacquer cool against my sweaty palm. I was standing in the center of my parents' backyard, a small patch of unnaturally green lawn that I, of course, paid the landscaping service for. This was the main event, my father, Nicholas's, retirement party. I had flown in from Seattle, taking 2 precious days away from a critical product launch, all to celebrate a man who had never once celebrated me. My tech consulting firm was booming, we were on the brink of a major acquisition, and I was running on caffeine and adrenaline. I felt physically ill, a combination of jet lag and the familiar acid-churning anxiety that only a visit home could induce. My mother, Poppy, a woman who existed in a permanent state of flustered agitation, glided over. "Vanessa, dear, he's about to make his speech. Come, come." She tugged at the sleeve of my silk blouse, her eyes darting around to make sure the neighbors were watching. I nodded, my smile feeling like a cheap mask. "I have his gift, Mom." "Oh, wonderful," she whispered, her relief palpable. Image was everything. Nicholas stood on the small patio, a glass of scotch in one hand, looking every bit the proud patriarch. At 65, he was a handsome man, his hair still thick and silver, his posture rigid from a lifetime of believing he was the most important person in any room. He had been a civil engineer, a man of slide rules and concrete, and he held a deep, abiding disdain for my new age career in the digital world he refused to understand. He gave a rambling speech about hard work, about real professions, and about the comfortable retirement he had earned. My brother, Ryan, the golden child, stood beside him, beaming. Ryan, 35 and perpetually, in between ventures, worked in finance. A euphemism so vague it covered everything from failed day trading to his current pyramid scheme selling vitamins. When the applause died down, Poppy nudged me forward. "Vanessa has a little something for you, Nicholas." All eyes turned to me. I felt that familiar shrinking sensation. I walked forward and held out the box. "Congratulations, Dad. I wanted to get you something special." He took the box, his movements deliberate. He opened the clasp, and even from a few feet away, I could see the glint of the platinum and steel Rolex. A murmur went through the crowd of neighbors and distant relatives. It was a $10,000 watch. It was excessive. It was a desperate, pathetic attempt to finally buy his approval. Nicholas looked at the watch, then he looked at me. A slow, thin-lipped smirk spread across his face. He raised his voice for the crowd to hear. "Trying to prove something, Vanessa." My stomach bottomed out. The air was sucked from my lungs. "You're still my disappointment." He didn't yell it. He said it with a casual, dismissive chuckle, as if sharing a charming family joke. The crowd tittered unsure, then fell silent. My brother Ryan shifted, looking embarrassed, but not for me, for himself, for being associated with this awkward moment. My mother's face went white, her smile frozen in a rictus of horror. For my entire 38 years, I had heard versions of this. "Why can't you be more like Ryan? What is this app nonsense? When are you going to get a real job?" But this was public. This was cruel. And this was, I realized with a sudden, crystal-clear finality, the end. The illness, the anxiety, the desperate need to please, it all vanished, replaced by a cold, quiet calm. I smiled. A real smile, not the cheap mask. I reached out and gently closed my hand over his, taking the Rolex box from his grasp. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I have nothing to prove." I turned, the green box now heavy in my own hand. I walked past the stunned faces, past the smoking grill, past the perfectly manicured flower beds I paid for. "Vanessa, don't you dare!" My mother, Poppy, shrieked the words, her voice cracking with pure panic. She wasn't screaming for me, she was screaming because the neighbors were watching. I didn't look back. I walked through the side gate, pulled my rental car keys from my pocket, and got in. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. My father, Nicholas, was still standing on the patio, scotch in hand, a look of pure, baffled indignation on his face. I drove to the hotel I'd booked. I never stayed at the house, and turned off my phone. I ordered room service, took a long, hot shower, and for the first time in my life, I slept for 10 solid hours. The betrayal, I realized as I drifted off, was finally complete. But it wasn't his betrayal of me. It was my betrayal of the toxic role I had agreed to play for 38 years. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. I woke up to silence. It was 8:00 a.m. The silence was a luxury, a thick, comforting blanket I hadn't realized I'd been missing. My hotel room was bright, the Seattle sun, a rare and glorious thing, streaming through the window, a stark contrast to the oppressive humidity of my parents' backyard. My first instinct, a deeply programmed reflex, was to check my phone. I picked it up from the bedside table. The screen was black. I had turned it completely off, not just silenced it. The urge to power it on to check the damage was almost overwhelming. I could already feel the phantom vibrations, the barrage of texts I knew would be waiting. "Poppy, you have embarrassed this entire family. Call me. Nicholas, you ungrateful child, you owe your mother an apology. Ryan, Ness, that was really low class. Mom is a wreck." I held the phone in my hand, this little black rectangle that held all the invisible chains. I had spent my entire adult life waiting for these calls, these texts, these demands. I was the family fixer, the disappointment who was, paradoxically, the only one they called when things truly fell apart. Ryan's failed ventures weren't just failures, they were financial black holes that I had quietly filled. Poppy's anxieties were often veiled requests for money to maintain the lifestyle Nicholas demanded. And Nicholas, he just demanded. I put the phone back down, screen down. Not yet. I stood and stretched, my back popping. The knot of anxiety that usually lived between my shoulder blades was gone. In its place was a strange, hollow lightness. I felt calm, not happy, not angry, just still. I ordered coffee and eggs, opened my laptop, and got to work. I had a launch to manage. I fired off emails to my team, reviewed code commits, and joined a video call with my board, all while sitting in a fluffy hotel robe. For 3 hours, I was just Vanessa, CEO of a company I'd built from nothing. I was competent, respected, and in complete control. It was in this moment of clarity, this stark divide between my two worlds, that the thought truly crystallized. It wasn't just a thought, it was a line item, a balance sheet, a cold, hard calculation. And they had all, in their magnificent, selfish ignorance, forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgot what I actually do for a living. My father thought I played on the computer. My brother thought I was just lucky. My mother just saw a bottomless ATM. They had no concept of what it meant to build and manage a multi-million-dollar tech firm. They didn't understand that my new age job required a skill set they couldn't even fathom. The ability to analyze complex systems, identify critical failure points, and, when necessary, reroute an entire infrastructure to prevent a total collapse. Or, in this case, to initiate one. My family was a complex system. It was poorly designed, full of bugs, and reliant on a single point of failure, me, and I was about to pull the plug. At 11:30 a.m., I picked up my phone. I powered it on. The explosion was immediate. The phone didn't just vibrate, it seemed to physically seize on the nightstand, rattling like a dying insect. 38 missed calls. 72 unread text messages. The log was a perfect timeline of their collective panic. 9:00 p.m. last night, Poppy. Vanessa, this is not funny, come back. 9:05 p.m. Poppy. Your father is furious, you've ruined his night. 9:30 p.m. Ryan. What the hell is your problem? 10:00 p.m. Poppy. Call Emmy, now. 1:00 a.m. Nicholas. The only text he'd ever sent me. You will be here in the morning to apologize. 6:00 a.m. this morning, Poppy. Are you all right? Please just let me know you're safe. The manipulations shift from anger to feigned concern. 7:00 a.m. Ryan. Seriously, Ness, mom is freaking out, just call her. 8:00 a.m. 9:00 a.m. 10:00 a.m. The calls became more frequent, more frantic. Poppy. Ryan. Poppy. Ryan. Nicholas. Poppy. But then at 10:45 a.m. the tone changed. 10:46 a.m. Ryan. Vanessa, my card was just declined at the gas station. What did you do? 10:48 a.m. Ryan. This isn't funny, my card for the family support fund isn't working. 10:52 a.m. Poppy. Ryan just called me. Something is wrong with the accounts. Please call us. 11:01 a.m. Nicholas. Answer your phone, immediately. I read the messages, one after another, my face impassive. The cold, light feeling was still there. It was focus. I opened my laptop again. I had 3 more calls to make. 1 to my bank manager, 1 to my lawyer, and 1 to the leasing company that managed the luxury sedan my father drove. They had forgotten what I do. I build systems, I analyze them, and I know exactly how to deprovision access. The phone rang again in my hand. It was Poppy. I silenced it, letting it go to voicemail. I had work to do. My entire life has been a study in cognitive dissonance. The person I was at home and the person I was in the world were 2 different women. The world saw Vanessa, the 38-year-old founder of a design and strategy firm that consulted for Fortune 500 companies. I was sharp, I was decisive, and I was, by every metric, wildly successful. But at home, I was just Ness, the disappointment, the artsy one, the girl who played on computers instead of getting a real job like her father, Nicholas. Nicholas was a man built of right angles and rigid principles. He was a civil engineer, and he saw the world in terms of load-bearing walls and stress tolerances. In his mind, I had failed every structural test. He had wanted an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. He got me. My brother, Ryan, was the one who was supposed to succeed. He was the son. He went into finance, which made Nicholas beam with pride, even though none of us, least of all Nicholas, knew what Ryan actually did. I knew. I knew because I was the one who got the first call. It was 10 years ago. I had just closed my first major seed round. I was celebrating with my team when my phone buzzed. It was Ryan, and he was crying. Ness, I messed up, he'd whispered, his voice thick. I lost it, all of it. Lost what, Ryan? What are you talking about? The startup money and some of mom and dad's. It turned out Ryan, in his first venture, had convinced Nicholas to co-sign a massive business loan, leveraging the family home as collateral. He'd then proceeded to lose it all, and more, on a series of terrible investments. Nicholas and Poppy were a month away from foreclosure. My father, the man of principles, had been played by his own son, and his pride was so immense he couldn't even admit it. He was just quiet, broken. So I stepped in. I was 28 years old. I took the entire, massive seed round I had just raised for my own company, my future, and I paid off the loan. I paid it all. I told my investors I was restructuring and lived on ramen for a year, working 20-hour days to make up the deficit. I never told them, not really, I just took over. I set up a trust. I funneled a portion of my new company's revenue into it. The trust quietly made the mortgage payments. Then it started paying the utilities because I noticed they were always late. Then it paid for the landscaping because Poppy was obsessed with the neighbors. Then it paid for Nicholas's country club dues because his retirement was built on a lie and his pension wasn't enough. Then came Ryan's requests. Ness, could you spot me just until this next deal closes? Ness, my car broke down. Ness, I need a new suit for a meeting. It was easier to just give him an allowance, so I created the Family Support Fund. It was a private bank account linked to a credit card, which I gave to Ryan for emergencies. I set a monthly cap, but the emergencies became weekly. Daily, I'd just sigh, approve the overage, and go back to work. All of this I did in silence. My attempts to prove my worth weren't with $10,000 watches. They were with mortgages, with car leases, with the quiet, invisible scaffolding that held their entire, respectable life together. And in return, I got, "You're still my disappointment." My primary antagonist wasn't just Nicholas. It was the entire, sick system they had built, with him as the figurehead, Poppy as the enabler, and Ryan as the parasite. Poppy was perhaps the most tragic. She knew, on some level she had to know, but her terror of Nicholas's moods, her pathological need for normalcy, made her the perfect accomplice. "Just make peace, Vanessa," she'd plead with me over the phone. "Your father, he's just from a different time, he doesn't mean it." "He does mean it, Mom, that's the whole point. You're successful, we know, but he just wants you to be happy." "He wants me to be him," I'd reply, exhausted. Or Ryan. And Ryan, the golden child, he was the most insidious of all. He wasn't just a failure, he was a confident failure. He wore his incompetence with a baffling swagger. He'd sit at the Thanksgiving table after I'd just transferred $5,000 to cover his rent and lecture me on my company's risky overhead. "You're spread too thin, Ness," he'd say, tapping his fork on the table. "You need to diversify your assets, like Dad, like me." And Nicholas would nod, mouth full of turkey. "Listen to your brother, Vanessa, he knows the market." My phone buzzed again, pulling me from the memory. It was an email, not from my family, it was from my private investigator. Oh yes, I had forgotten that part. My father's disdain was a given. My mother's enabling was a constant. But Ryan was a liability. And I, as the primary investor in Ryan, Inc., had finally decided to do some due diligence. 2 weeks ago, I'd hired a PI to figure out where all the family support fund money was really going. It wasn't just failed ventures and bad rent. The numbers were too big. The email subject was, "Final Report, RYAN." I opened it, I poured another cup of coffee. The last piece of the puzzle was clicking into place. The hotel room, which had felt like a sanctuary, suddenly felt like a war room. The PI's report was not a long read, but it was dense. It was clinical. It was devastating. Ryan was not a financial advisor. He was not between ventures. My brother, the golden child, had a severe, crippling gambling addiction. The family support fund wasn't paying for suits and rent. It was paying off online sports betting sites. It was covering markers at underground poker games. The PI had attached screenshots of threatening texts from bookies, a list of transfers to offshore accounts, and a detailed summary of his debts. The $5,000 for rent I'd sent last month, it had covered about 3 days of his losses. He was in the hole for just over $200,000, and the people he owed money to were not the wait until your next paycheck types. My quiet funding of his life hadn't just been enabling a failure. It had been financing a dangerous and accelerating self-destruction. And he had been using my parents' good name and my money as his shield. The cold calm I'd felt earlier was gone. It was replaced by a white-hot, focused rage. The betrayal wasn't just the insult at the barbecue. It was the decade of lies. It was the manipulation. It was the fact that they had all of them, treated my hard-earned success as a utility, a natural resource to be plundered. I had been a fool, I had been a victim, and now I was done. This was no longer a family squabble. This was a hostile takeover, and I was shifting from a passive, wounded party into a strategist. My clever trap wasn't something I had to set. It was a trap that was already sprung. The only thing I had to do was stop holding it open. The leverage I had wasn't a secret document or a hidden piece of knowledge. My leverage was gravity. I had been the only thing holding them up, and I was about to step aside. I picked up my phone. My fingers flew across the screen, not in anger, but with the precise, detached efficiency of a surgeon. First call, my personal wealth manager at the bank. "David, good morning, it's Vanessa." "Ms. Cade, always a pleasure. How's Seattle?" "Productive." "Listen, David, I need to make some immediate changes to my automated transfers. I'm dissolving the family support fund account. I want all automated payments from that account and from my primary business account to the list of payees I'm sending you to be terminated. Immediately. There was a pause. All of them, Vanessa. I'm looking at the list. That includes the mortgage trust for your parents' address, the country club membership, and the lease payments for 2 vehicles. That's correct, all of them. Terminate with prejudice. And David, I want you to freeze the card associated with the support fund, account number ending in 4088, as of 1 hour ago. Understood, he said, his voice dropping into a professional, unquestioning tone. I'll execute this immediately. Second call, my corporate lawyer. Sarah, hi, I have a situation. A Vanessa situation or a business situation? A family situation that is about to become a business situation. I need you to draft a cease and desist. And I need to know the firewall between my personal assets and my company, specifically regarding family debt. I explained the $200,000. I explained Ryan's activities. Okay, she said, all business. First, he's not your employee and he's not an officer of your company. You are not liable for his personal gambling debts. However, these bookies don't care about legalities. I want you to file a police report immediately, not to have him arrested, but to create a paper trail. If these people come looking for him, you need a document that states you are not associated with this. And the cease and desist? Who is it for? My brother, Ryan. I need to formally, legally, state that he is to have no more contact with me or my company regarding financial matters. I can have that drafted in an hour, Sarah said. Vanessa, are you okay? I've never been better, I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. Third call, the leasing company for my father's luxury sedan. It was a short, simple conversation. The lease was in my company's name. I was terminating it early. Yes, I would pay the penalty. I wanted the car repossessed. Today. Final action. I forwarded the P-ICE report, my lawyer's recommendations, and a very short, very clear email to one person. My mother. Sabe. Jacked the truth. Mom, I will not be calling you. I will not be coming back. The family support fund you all relied on is now closed. The card Ryan has been using is deactivated. I will no longer be paying for the mortgage, the cars, the club, or any of it. My father's insult was just the tip of the iceberg. Attached is a report detailing exactly where the money you all took from me has been going. Ryan does not have a cash flow problem. He has a gambling addiction, and he is over $200,000 in debt to dangerous people. This is no longer my problem to solve. Do not contact me. Do not try to find me. The next person you will hear from is my lawyer. Vanessa. I hit send. I packed my bag. I put the Rolex, still in its green box, into my carry-on. I figured I'd sell it, or maybe I'd keep it as a reminder. I checked out of the hotel. As I walked through the lobby, my phone lit up with a new, unknown number. I didn't answer. I stepped out into the bright Seattle sunshine, took a deep breath of clean, clear air, and hailed a cab to the airport. The first part of the plan was complete. Now, I would just let the system I had built tear itself apart. The flight back to Seattle was the first time in my adult life I had ever truly been off the grid. I'd paid extra for the patchy in-flight Wi-Fi, not to communicate, but to watch. I had a separate, secure portal set up to monitor my finances. I watched, in real time, as the holds and terminations I had ordered went into effect. The Family Support Fund account, status, frozen. The mortgage trust, status, payments terminated. The car lease, status, contract terminated. Repossession order filed. It was like watching a controlled demolition. I was 30,000 feet in the air, sipping ginger ale, while the foundations of their lives, foundations I had built, were being vaporized. When I landed, I turned my phone on. It was a deluge, but this time, it wasn't just my family. The unknown numbers were multiplying. The first confrontation, it seemed, had already happened without me. The first voicemail I listened to was not from Poppy or Nicholas. It was from Ryan. And the voice I heard was not the slick, confident finance voice. It was the high, thin, terrified squeal of the boy I remembered from 10 years ago. Ness, Vanessa, please pick up. You don't understand what you've done. You can't just turn it off. These guys, they aren't investors, Ness. They're serious. They were at the house. They were at the house looking for me. And Nicholas. Dad, he told them. He told them where I live. You have to call me. You have to fix this. He was weeping, a pathetic, gasping sound. I deleted the voicemail. The next one was from Poppy. It was pure, unfiltered hysteria. Vanessa, what have you done? A horrible, large man was just here, at our house. During the barbecue, he came to the door asking for Ryan. He said Ryan owed him money. Nicholas told him he didn't know. And then a tow truck. Vanessa, a tow truck came. It took your father's car, right out of the driveway in front of everyone. I've never seen him like this. You have to call. You have to explain, what is in that email? I can't open the attachment. What did you do? So, the reveal had been more chaotic than I'd planned. The bookie had shown up at the party. The tow truck had arrived while guests were still mingling. The public humiliation I had suffered was nothing compared to the one I had just, with a few phone calls, engineered for them. I almost felt a sliver of pity. Almost. I got home to my quiet, minimalist apartment overlooking the Sound. I showered, changed, and made a cup of tea. And then I did the one thing I hadn't planned on. I called my mother. She picked up on the first half ring, her voice a raw-throated gasp. Vanessa. Hello, Mom, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Oh, thank God, Vanessa, you have to fix this. Your father. He's in his study. I think he's crying. I've never heard him cry. The car is gone, the neighbors are all talking, and Ryan? Oh, God, Vanessa, Ryan. What about Ryan, Mom? He's here, he's hiding in his old bedroom. Those men, they went to his apartment, so he came here. He's terrified. He said you did this. I didn't do this, Mom. I just stopped paying for it. But the car, your father's retirement, we can't. She was sobbing now. Why would you do this, after all we've done for you? The sheer, breathtaking audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. Done for me? Mom, I have been paying your mortgage for 10 years. I have been paying for Dad's car. I have been paying for Ryan's. Mistakes. I am the only reason you have a house for him to hide in. There was a choking sound on the other end. What? What do you mean? You helped with the mortgage, your father said. Dad lied, I said, sipping my tea. He didn't handle the loan 10 years ago. I paid it off. And then I kept paying. I paid for everything. The house you're in is not yours. It's been funded by the disappointment for a decade. Silence, not a stunned silence, but a heavy, guilty silence. You knew, I whispered, the realization hitting me. You didn't know the details, but you knew. You knew he couldn't afford that house. You knew the checks were coming from me. We're your family, Vanessa, she whispered, her voice hardening. This was the real Poppy, the enabler, the manipulator. You're supposed to help. It's what family does. No, Mom, that's what I did. Family? Family isn't supposed to call their daughter a disappointment after she buys them a $10,000 watch, which, by the way, was bought with the money I earned, not the money I was siphoning off my relatives. You, ungrateful. Stop, I said, my voice like steel. I'm done. I've already spoken to my lawyer. This is the last time you and I will speak without her present. The bank will be in touch about the house. I suggest you and Dad start looking for apartments. And tell Ryan. Tell him the police report has already been filed. He can't hide behind me anymore. I hung up. The first confrontation was over. I had shattered their perception. But the true extent of the deception, Ryan's $200,000 secret, was a bomb that had yet to fully detonate. The bank notices wouldn't arrive for a few days. The real panic hadn't even begun. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in desperation. My family, now cut off from their primary source of life, began to flail. But they weren't flailing together. The united front they had always presented against me had crumbled, and they had turned on each other. My phone, now that I had blocked Poppy, Nicholas, and Ryan, was quiet. but my lawyer's phone was not. They are persistent, Sarah said, sounding tired. Your mother has left 12 voicemails. They're mostly crying and accusations. Your father left one. It was colorful. He threatened to sue me, you, and the leasing company for grand theft auto. I've already sent him a reply referencing the contract with your company's signature on it. And Ryan's. Ryan, Sarah sighed, is a different story. He's not calling me. He's calling my assistant pretending to be a process server. He's trying to find your home address. He's panicking. As he should be, I said, looking out at the calm water of the Sound. Yes, about that. The PI report was good, but I dug a little deeper as you asked. His bookies aren't just local thugs, Vanessa. The offshore accounts he was wiring money to, they're part of a much larger, very organized syndicate. The $200,000, that's just what we know about. And it seems his Family Support Fund credit card was his primary line of, well, credit. By freezing it, you've essentially defaulted on his behalf. A cold shiver went down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying he's not just in trouble, he's in danger. And he's desperate. A desperate man will do desperate things. He's been trying to access the mortgage trust, the house. He's been calling your bank, trying to impersonate you. This was the escalation. Ryan wasn't just a sad sack gambler, he was a criminal. He was committing fraud. I need you to call your parents, Vanessa, Sarah said. I told them I wouldn't. No, you need to call them and have a second confrontation. You need to present this irrefutable proof, the wire fraud, the impersonation, the PI report. You need to do it now before Ryan does something that drags you in any deeper. You need to make them understand that he is not a victim. He is the perpetrator. And you need to record the call. My office will set it up. This was it. This was the final break. This wasn't just about an insult at a barbecue. This was about severing a limb to save the body. Sarah set up a three-way, recorded conference call. I unblocked Poppy's and Nicholas's numbers for 1 hour. I dialed. Nicholas answered, "What? It's Vanessa. I have my lawyer Sarah on the line. This call is being recorded." You dare?" he blustered, but the voice was thinner now. Less patriarch, more old man. "Where's Mom?" "I'm here," Poppy whispered. "Good, you both need to listen and you are not to interrupt. Sarah, please proceed." "Mr. and Mrs. Cade," Sarah's voice was crisp and devoid of emotion. "We are calling to inform you of several irregularities that have come to our attention, specifically regarding your son, Ryan." "What about Ryan?" Poppy asked, her voice trembling. He's not well." "Your son is a criminal, Mrs. Cade," Sarah said flatly. "In the last 48 hours, he has attempted to access Ms. Cade's personal bank accounts via fraudulent misrepresentation. That's a federal crime. He has also incurred over $200,000 in gambling debts, which he has attempted to secure by illegally using Ms. Cade's financial instruments." "Lies," Nicholas roared. He has a cash flow problem, it's that woman he was seeing." "Dad," I said, my voice cutting through his, "it's not a woman, it's a bookie, and I have the receipts. Sarah, please send them the file. Now." I heard the ping of an email notification on their end. I had sent the PI report, the bank statements showing the wires to offshore accounts, the audio file from my bank's fraud department of Ryan trying to pass himself off as Vanessa Cade. I heard Poppy gasp, Oh, Nicholas." There was a long, long silence. I heard a muffled click. Nicholas had opened the audio file. They were listening to their golden child, his voice pitched high in a terrible imitation of mine, trying to convince a bank manager to please, just transfer the funds, I'm in a hurry. The sound of my father's breathing was ragged. He's a gambler, Dad," I said, the anger gone, replaced by a deep, profound exhaustion. "He's a fraud, and for 10 years I have been cleaning up his messes. For 10 years you've been calling me the disappointment while he was robbing all of us. I stopped paying, that's all. I stopped paying and the entire house of cards fell down." "So what now?" Poppy cried. Are you sending him to jail?" The terror in her voice was for him, it was always for him. I'm not doing anything, I said. That's the point, I'm out. The bank will be serving you foreclosure papers on the house. The trust is dissolved. Your car is gone. Ryan's associates are his problem. What you do now is up to you. But my money, my company, and my life are no longer yours to use. Sarah, do you have anything else to add? Yes, Sarah said. Mr. and Mrs. Cade, a cease and desist is on its way to your home, effective immediately for all three of you. Any further contact will be considered harassment. We are done here. We hung up. The spell was broken. The irrefutable proof had been delivered. The golden child had been exposed, not by my accusations, but by his own recorded actions. The silence that followed in my apartment was, for the first time, truly peaceful. A week passed, a week of absolute, blissful silence. I had my lawyer's office filter everything. I went to work. I closed the acquisition. My company, my real life, was thriving. I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of my family had been an anchor I hadn't even realized I was dragging. Then I got an email. It wasn't from my family. It was from my aunt, my father's sister, a woman I'd always liked but who lived on the other side of the Nicholas is always right fence. Subject, your father. Vanessa, I don't know the whole story, but I know bits of it. Your mother is a wreck. Your father is a ghost. They're having a family meeting at the house on Sunday before the bank repossesses it. Your mother's words. I think you should be there. Not for them, for you. I stared at the email. A family meeting. A public showdown. A final, dramatic attempt to guilt me into submission. They were going to sell the house and they were having one last, what? A wake. I booked a flight. I didn't tell them I was coming. I let myself in the front door, my key still worked, at 2:00 p.m. on Sunday. The house was a disaster. Boxes were everywhere. The furniture was in disarray. It was a house that had been ransacked, not packed. They were in the living room. Nicholas, Poppy, and Ryan, they looked terrible. Nicholas, who had always been so proud of his appearance, was in a stained bathrobe, his silver hair uncombed. Poppy's eyes were red and swollen, her face a puffy mask of misery. And Ryan looked like a cornered animal. He was vibrating with a strung-out, desperate energy. They all froze when they saw me. Vanessa, my mother whispered, as if seeing a ghost. You have no right to be here, Ryan shrieked, jumping to his feet. You did this. I paid for this, I said, my voice echoing in the half-empty room. I was holding a single, thick, leather-bound binder. I paid for this sofa. I paid for this rug. I paid for the roof over your head. And since you're all here, I thought it was time we went over the final accounting. I was no longer the daughter. I was the CEO. This was an exit audit. What is this? Nicholas said, his voice a gravelly rasp. This, I said, dropping the binder on the coffee table with a heavy thud, is the last 10 years of my life. And yours. I opened it to the first tab. Let's start with the house. In 2014, when Ryan's first venture failed, you were 30 days from foreclosure. Here is the bank statement showing my wire transfer of $120,000 to clear the lien. And here, and here, and here are the 120 subsequent mortgage payments I made on your behalf. Total contribution, $388,400. Poppy let out a small, strangled sound. Next, I flipped the page. The cars, Dad, your retirement. Sedan, a company lease. Here's the contract. Total cost to my firm, $42,000. And Mom, your little runabout, also me, $28,000. But the country club, Nicholas whispered, his eyes wide. He was looking at the numbers, the concrete, irrefutable data. I was finally speaking his language. Page 3, your dues, your bar tabs, your golf games, all paid from the family support fund. Total, $61,000. You kept records. Poppy was horrified. Of course I did, I said. I'm a businesswoman, I track my expenditures. And then I turned to the last tab, the thickest one, and then there's Ryan. Ryan, who had been sinking into the couch, tried to stand. You You can't. I can, I said, my voice dropping. This isn't just about failed startups, Ryan. This is about fraud. This is about addiction. This, and I pulled out a single sheet, is a summary from the PI I hired. Wires to offshore accounts, markers from bookies, online casinos, a grand total of $214,000 in 16 months, all funneled through the account I was paying for. Nicholas looked from the paper to his son. The look on his face was not anger. It was comprehension, the final, terrible click of the puzzle. The disappointment and the golden child had been in the wrong bodies all along. So this is it, I said, closing the binder. I'm not here to save you. I'm not here to yell. I'm here to collect one last thing. I walked over to the mantelpiece, where a framed photo of me, Ryan, and our parents sat. A happy family, frozen in a lie. I took the photo out of the frame. No, wait, Poppy started. But it was Ryan who made the final, triumphant move. He had been watching his father's face. He had seen the shift. He knew in that moment that the con was over. He grabbed the binder, he held it up. So what? So you paid, that's what you do, you pay, you think this paper, makes you better than me. Yes, I said. And Nicholas, my father, the rigid, unbending man, finally, looked at his son, and he saw him. You, Nicholas said, his voice a quiet rumble, you are a thief. Ryan froze. He looked at his father, his face crumbling. Dad. You're not my son, Nicholas said, standing up. He was shaking. You let me, call her. He couldn't finish. He pointed a trembling finger at the door. Get out. But Dad, I have nowhere to go, she cut me off. Get out, Nicholas roared, and in that moment I saw the man he could have been. Ryan, in a final, pathetic act, threw the binder at the wall. Pages of his deceit flew everywhere, and then he ran. He grabbed his coat, tore open the front door, and was gone. The showdown was over. It wasn't a bang, it was a whimper. In the silence that followed Ryan's exit, the only sound was the rustle of papers as they settled on the floor. Poppy was weeping silently into her hands. Nicholas stood, breathing heavily, staring at the empty doorway. He looked 20 years older than he had at his retirement party. I knelt and began gathering the pages. My spreadsheets, my receipts, my proof. Leave it, Nicholas said. I looked up. He was looking at me, really looking at me for the first time. He started. He held out a trembling hand, not to me, but to the room, to the boxes, to the mess. All this time. Yes, I said. I stood up, the binder in my hand. All this time. I didn't expect an apology. I didn't want one. It wouldn't have been real. It would have been a last-ditch attempt to fix his new problem, the same way my Rolex was an attempt to fix my old one. The house, he said, his voice flat. The bank, is it? It's real, I said. The foreclosure is proceeding. The trust is dissolved. You'll have to make arrangements. He nodded, a single, sharp jerk of his head. He had lost his son, his house, his car, and his pride, all in 1 week. He had nothing left to be arrogant about. He was just a broken old man in a bathrobe. I looked at Poppy. Mom. She looked up, her face a ruin of tear-tracked makeup. I'm not coming back, I said. This is it. This is the end. Vanessa, please, she whispered. We're your family. No, I said, and the word was final. You're the people I was related to, my family, my real family, are the people I built in Seattle, my team, my friends, the people who respect me. I walked to the front door. I didn't look back. I closed it gently behind me. The aftermath was quiet. My lawyer, Sarah, handled the sale of the house. The bank seized it, and to mitigate my own losses from the trust, I bought it from them at auction. I had it cleaned, emptied of their remaining belongings, which I had shipped to a storage unit, and sold it. I wired half the proceeds, a compassionate severance, as Sarah called it, to a new, small, 2-bedroom apartment I had rented in my parents' name. The other half I donated to a charity for gambling. NG addiction. Nicholas and Poppy moved into the apartment. It was clean, it was safe, but it was not their grand family home. It was a rental. My father, the retired engineer, got a job as a part-time consultant reviewing blueprints for a local firm. He had to. His pension, it turned out, was as much of a lie as his retirement. Ryan, I heard he bounced around. He tried to get a job in finance, but his reputation was destroyed. The last I heard from my aunt, he was working a retail job, stocking shelves at a supermarket. The bookies? I don't know. I had made it clear, through legal channels, that I was not responsible for his debts, and the police report had given me the necessary distance. He was, for the first time in his 35 years, truly on his own. The $10,000 Rolex, I kept it. It sits in my desk drawer, a reminder that you can't buy love and you shouldn't try. About 6 months later, I received a package. It was a small, handwritten letter. It was from my father. There was no "Dear Vanessa." It just said, "I reviewed the acquisition papers for your firm, the ones that were public. Your valuation was sound. Your exit strategy was..." He had crossed out a word. Smart, very smart. N. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness. It was, I realized, the only thing he could give me, a single, begrudging word of professional respect. It was the first compliment he'd ever paid me. I put the note in the binder with all the spreadsheets. The audit was finally, truly complete. I was vindicated, I was free, and I was, at last, at peace.